John was a friend of a guy I used to work for, and I found out that he was a plumber, and my mum needed radiators fitted to the house. So I asked John if he'd come round and have a look at the plumbing, and he ended up marrying my sister.
George and I, we fell out big time. It even come to a point where we nearly had a fight. Thankfully we didn't. And we just kept our separate ways, sort of thing, you know. It made it very difficult because obviously for going around to Lucy's mum's for meals and whatnot, if George was there, you know, it was very difficult.
We had a couple of small disputes, which was in the very early days, but shortly after that we got to know each other a lot better, and he made his feelings clear towards my daughter. And since that day it's got better and better, and I couldn't really ask for a better son-in-law.
There's nothing I could do about it, so that was it. They stayed together and I'm really glad they did.
Yeah, now we're best of buddies. He's best brother-in-law any man I think could ask for, and you know, we're really tight.
I could see, I think, from the very word go, that there was a bond. You know, as a mother, I think you can normally tell, which I could tell. So, yeah, I had a feeling from the very word go, that they were getting on very well together.
I went out and I chose a ring, and I thought, well, I don't just want to sort of do it in a pub or a club or a park. I thought I'd take her to New York and do it, something different.
Every father likes the prospective son-in-law to make a fuss of his daughter, and I think the way John carried it out in that really romantic style in them settings was absolutely perfect.
The way Lucy and I met was through her brother George. I had a good mate called Paul, where George used to work for as a bike mechanic. George asked me if I could repair his mum's heating system. So I said, yeah, of course I can, mate, not a problem. Went round, met his mum, Vicky, and a real nice lady. And she said, OK, she said, well, rather than just repairing it, what about renewing it? So I said, OK, fine, not a problem.
John was a friend of a guy I used to work for, and I found out that he was a plumber, and my mum needed radiators fitted to the house. So I asked John if he'd come round and have a look at the plumbing, and he ended up marrying my sister.
Me and my mate Danny and a mate of ours, Dom, we was hungry, so we decided to go to McDonald's. Well, Lucy was upstairs listening to music, and I shouted up to Lucy, would you like anything from McDonald's? And she said, yeah, I'll have a cheeseburger. So I said, OK, fine. She went to offer me some money, and I said, no, don't take the money. I said, it's fine. I said, I'll go and buy it for you.
I invited John round, obviously, for the work there, and he bought my sister a McDonald's, and the next thing I know, they're over the pub having a drink, and I walked in and, oh, what's going on here? Not very impressed.
What happened thereafter was that I was down the workshop with George and Paul, and Lucy's stepdad phoned up to say there was a slight leak on the stopcock, where obviously we turned it on and off, just a packing gland, so no one knows I'm a poor plumber. And I went back round there, but before I got there, Lucy knew that I was down the workshop, and you said, I'll tell John I love him.
So I had to go off work, slightly bored, so I thought I'd phone my brother up. I said, oh, is John there? And he went, yeah. And I went, oh, so tell him I love him and I want his babies messing about. And he said, you just told him you're on loudspeaker. Well, bright red. And the next thing I know, John's knocking at the door. And
I sort of had a bit of a chat with George, and he sort of said, have you got anything going on with my sister? And I said, well, no. I said, there's just something that's clicked there, really, George, to be honest with you. I said, don't know, just one of them moment things that, don't know, just felt right. George weren't, obviously, you know, he sort of said, well, no, leave it out. She's my sister and you're my mate and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, OK, fine, but eventually it sort of happened. George and I, we fell out big time. It even come to a point where we nearly had a fight. Thankfully, we didn't. And we just kept our separate ways, sort of thing, you know. It made it very difficult because obviously for going around to Lucy's mum's for meals and whatnot, if George was there, you know, it was very difficult. But eventually George came to, I think, realising that I was a decent guy and I weren't just after one thing.
There's nothing I could do about it, so that was it. They stayed together and I'm really glad they did.
Lucy had just turned 17, which was sort of, and obviously I was 27, so it just didn't feel like the right thing to do, but like I say, there was just something there that just clicked.
The 10-year age gap was something that concerned me a little bit. I thought because he's that much older than my sister, she might be a, you know, silly young girl. You didn't know, but then obviously as time went on, they proved themselves basically. A lot of the stuff the family had to throw at them, you know, they stayed together and done really well, so obviously they're meant to be together.
Yeah, now we're best of buddies. He's best brother-in-law any man I think could ask for, and you know, we're really tight.
We had a couple of small disputes, which was in the very early days, but shortly after that we got to know each other a lot better, and he made his feelings clear towards my daughter. And since that day it's got better and better, and I couldn't really ask for a better son-in-law. I know he loves her, I know he looks after her. Now I'm going to be a granddad, so what more can I ask for, you know, it's great.
I just thought of John as, he was a really nice fella, you know, not the most outgoing sort of fella, didn't speak very much to start with, but once you get to know him, yeah, and so it's really nice to have him in the family.
On our first date, John, unfortunately, is not very good at timekeeping, was 45 minutes late picking me up. My mum kept saying, look, he stood you up, which obviously didn't go down too well. John eventually turns up, and we went to the Spice of India, the local curry house, had a nice meal. I was very, very shy back then, and I think I ended up with most of my chicken tikka masala on my legs than I did in my mouth.
I came out and I had a white BMW, and for the first time ever, I've gone to put the immobiliser in and it was broken. And I felt like it was one of them old stories where, oh, the car's broken down, darling, do you mind walking back to the flat so that I could obviously call you a cab? And it was just, and I felt so bad, and I had a white van, and I said, Lou, I'll take you home in the van, it's all right. And I said, you can come in if you want, because it was very sort of shy and whatnot. It just didn't feel, I didn't want to get in the wrong idea, you know, it just didn't feel right. What caught my eye about Lucy was that I think it was the fact that I was sort of honoured on being a 17-year-old young lady was sort of interested in a 27-year-old plumber. I was single, obviously. I've been single for like 6 months. Hadn't really sort of been interested in girls because I had a broken relationship, and I thought it'd just be a case of, you know, going out and having a laugh and going clubbing and meeting new people, and it was just the fact that the closer that we decided to be friends, the more it started to progress into a relationship.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's her mannerisms, really. She's so caring and kind and understanding, and you know, they say that, you know, your partner really should be your best friend, and she is really my best friend. You know, I can talk to Lucy about anything and everything, and she'll sit there and she'll sort of comment, but she will never judge. Being
sort of as young as I was, I suppose, I just looked and thought, oh, quite nice. I don't know, just the way he was speaking to me when we was at my mum's. Once he brought me that cheeseburger, I thought, oh, I'm in with a chance here. But I was going to say easily brought, but no, as soon as I met him, I thought, quite liked him, and I heard that he was a nice bloke, and obviously found that out for myself. When
John first told us that he was going with Lucy and how old she was, I said to him, gosh, John, you know, she's a little bit young, isn't she? You know, people think you've been cradle snatching. So he said, no, Mum, he said, I think she's the one for me. He said, you know, I'll bring her around and you can meet her.
The first time I met Lucy was John invited me to a Chinese restaurant to meet Lucy for the first time. And they came and picked me up, got in the car, she hardly said a word. Drove to the restaurant, she hardly said a word. Sat in the restaurant, she hardly said a word. Well, I couldn't quite work out whether she was standoffish or shy. What she was just incredibly shy, because at that time she was only, I think she was 17. So, but it didn't take me long to realise that she's not actually shy. So, and I just thought she was lovely.
Yeah, I thought, well, she's a pretty girl, you know, a sweet little thing. And we got on quite well on our first meeting. She's bubbly, as, you know, that sort of age you are. And I think it just went good from that sort of moment. And I've always been very fond of Lucy.
The 10-year age gap made no difference to me whatsoever, because I'm one of these people, I think, if it's going to work, it's going to work. And with a 10-year age gap, OK, she was 17 at the time, he was 27, but when she's 25 and he's like 35, it narrows, I think. The age gap narrows as people grow older and mature, so it didn't make any difference to me. He
more or less had girlfriends, give or take a year or 2 years, similar to his age. So this was quite a big jump down from the sort of age gap, actually. It didn't matter to me because I could see, I think, from the very word go, that there was a bond. You know, as a mother, I think you can normally tell, which I could tell. So, yeah, I had a feeling from that, from the very word go, that they were getting on very well together.
To be honest, my dad was always sort of okay with it. He sort of met John, obviously, a couple of times. Thought he was a genuine, nice bloke. Mum, on the other hand, couldn't understand, obviously, what we saw in each other. And I remember we went over to the pub, asked if I could move in, and John gave it some of the chat, saying, oh, don't think of it as losing a daughter, Vic, think of it as gaining a son. She sort of said, don't feed me with that, blah, blah, blah. In the end, she agreed that I could move in, and she said, well, I'm going to Ibiza next week. She said, I want you to still be at home when I get back. She said, and then once I've seen you, you can go. Well, of course, as soon as she was at the end of the road on her way to the airport, I had my bags packed, about 3 or 4 bus journeys, backwards and forwards. And I think it was shortly after that, to be honest, my mum had no choice but to accept it. But she always saved my room, though, because she thought I was going to go back, but I never.
We'd known each other a year and a half when I first considered proposing to Lucy. And I thought, me being a gentleman, I'd do the necessary, and, you know, I phoned her dad up and I said, Martin, I said, I need to have a chat with you. And he was like, right, OK, right, what's wrong? And I think he might have thought I'd actually got Lucy pregnant. But anyway, we met up in the pub, and I said to him, I said, Martin, I said, call me old-fashioned if you like. I said, but I want to ask your daughter to marry me, and I want to know your views on that. And he was so thrown back by it. He's a real lovely man, you know. I actually thought he was going to cry, and he said, oh, John, he said, I couldn't wish of a better man to sort of get married to my daughter. It'd be a pleasure, and, you know, you got my blessing.
John did actually come up to Chelsea to see me one day and took me to one side and asked me would I object to him taking my daughter's hand in marriage, which I thought was a real gentleman thing to do. And of course I said absolutely no objection whatsoever. When I first thought about asking Lucy to marry me, I went to her mum. Vicky, yeah, she was happy. I think she was a bit shocked and unsure, to be honest. But yeah, she gave me her blessing. She said, yeah, you know, what will be, will be. And I went out and I chose a ring. And I thought, well, I don't just want to sort of do it in a pub or a club or a park. I thought I'd take her to New York and do it, something different. So a mate of mine who works for BA, he helped us out with flights and things like this. And I saved up as best as I could, and we booked the Hilton in New York. I planned it so that it would be for my birthday. So Lucy thought we was just going out there for my birthday just to go shopping. The day that I was going to propose to Lucy, I was that nervous that we're actually walking around and we're looking for Times Square. And we bought a map.
And I was standing there with this huge map trying to work out where I was. And this American guy come over, he said, you all right, buddy? He said, can I help you at all? And so I said, yeah, I'm looking for Times Square, mate. He said, well, you're in it. And I said, oh, right, it's brilliant, isn't it? That was how nervous I was, because I was just like in a diver. I didn't know where exactly what to do, where to go, trying to sort of entertain Lucy as well as myself and trying to get as much sightseeing as possible. It was very difficult by doing it, but I managed to escape on one of the days and went and booked what they call the View.
I think it's about 70 floors up, rotating restaurant.
Yeah, the floor rotates and it's all glass and very, very picturesque, very lovely place to go to. And that's where I done it. That's where I proposed to Lucy. We was basically having a nice meal and I'd ordered a bottle of champagne and strawberries. As the champagne and strawberries turned up, the word had got about that there was a proposal, and then the spotlights went on, didn't they? And that was it. I was well under pressure. And
I wondered why he was sweating so much, because I didn't have a clue what was going on.
Yeah. And I had this ring in my pocket, and the suit pocket I had on was quite a deep pocket. And I'm there, sweating like a pig. And I'm like, I'll be there in a minute, darling. Trying to get this ring, and I finally got this ring out. And as you do, went down on one knee, popped open the box and said to Lucy, will you marry me? And at first she went silent, didn't you? You just sort of, she'd done a Ross on Friends when he found out he was going to be a dad. She just went...
To be honest, I was so jet-lagged when we was out there. For some reason, I think we was out there for 4 nights, 5 days. We had the giggles for the whole 4 days. That much that we're literally walking down the street crying where we're laughing so much. And I remember we're sort of having a giggle, having a laugh across the table. And I just remember him going down on one knee. And it was like a blur. Yeah, I remember just staring at him.
Just like that. And I said, and she went, yeah, of course I will. And that was it. We obviously put the ring on and everybody sort of started to clap and I drank and drank.
Pictures of us and everything. So it was nice though, really nice.
Obviously when Lucy said yes to my proposal, I was very relieved because we were still on holiday, so, you know, my fear was that if Lucy had any doubts in her mind, well then, you know, for the 2 days afterwards, it could be, you know, pillars between the bed and, you know, sleeping out on the sidewalk or something like that. But, yeah, no, I mean, obviously, when she said yes, I was relieved for the fact that, you know, I wanted her to be my wife. I didn't say it just for the, you know, just for the fun of it, and also for the fact that thereafter it was like, it was good to be in New York because rather than sort of just looking around at clothes and things like that, we said, well, come on and let's go to Macy's and places like that, look at bridal dresses and suits and sightseeing buses and things like this. And you know, then it sort of made it progress even further because, you know, not that you get bored with talking, but then you got another thing to start to talk about and plan and enjoy and, you know, look forward to. One
of my dad's friends, Graham, I heard that he had just got engaged. I went down there a few days before we were due to go to New York, and as I've got out the cab, he's cut to, hi Lou, I hear you got engaged, congratulations. I've gone, did I? I heard you got engaged, like, congratulations yourself. I said, I'm not engaged. And I remember my dad's face now going, because he'd obviously told his friends what John's plan was. So I'm sitting there all confused, and I'm getting married. And he said, oh yeah. And of course, when we ended up going out there, but I come home laughing and I said to John, oh, Graham said something weird to me. And John sort of done his sort of nervous giggle, again broke out into a sweat. And yeah, so I wasn't expecting it there and then, I don't think, but I sort of had a sneaky feeling something was going on.
So I told a friend of mine, Graham, that my son-in-law had intended to propose to my daughter when he arrived in Chelsea. So, of course, as they walked in, Graham had said, oh, congratulations, Lucy. And I thought, oh, no. He's actually burst the bubble before it even happened. So, yes, he dropped us in it somewhat there.
We all had a big falling out one day about something really minor. I told my sister she looked like an Alsatian in a jacket she was wearing, which was a bit of a silly thing to do after a few beers. But me and John sort of had a falling out. It was a real stupid thing, but it escalated and we ended up not talking for quite a long time. So unfortunately, the time they was engaged, I knew nothing about it at all, other than what my dad had told me, and I was too proud to phone my sister up and say congratulations, which I regret now, obviously. My mum hadn't been very well before. She'd had like a brain tumour, had a tumour removed, and we didn't know how she was going to be. And because all the family were getting together, John made such a great effort at the point, you know, when my mum was ill, and he'd done everything he could for me and Lucy to make it easier for us. And after that, I realised maybe he's not such a bad guy. He's not just after one thing, you know. He is genuinely a nice guy. And after that, we went to his 30th birthday party, and we both agreed to make an effort from that point on, you know, not to fall out over silly things. And from then on, it's been great. And then I was their usher, which I was very, very pleased with after the disagreements we've had in the past. Nice to know everything's behind you, you know, and a good, fresh start for everyone.
Whenever you like.
What are you what are you going to say? What's going on? You just step there and go. Alright? Yeah.
Darling, obviously, me and your brother...
Right, listen, right, hang on, we start together.
Yeah.
We go, it's 070707, Lucy and John's big happy day. I hope everyone had a fantastic day, and this is the best way to remember it. Yeah. What do you think? We go, this is 070707.
We're already being recorded, mate.
Are we?
Yeah. Did you not realise?
No, I didn't. I was trying to be... Lucy,
say something nice.
I want you to show this to your firstborn kid. Their Uncle George is going to be great. And
He is, yes. He's going to be very lovely.
Don't do all that gay business behind my head. We won't tell the kids about that affair we had back in...
Sorry,
I want the news, not the weather. Come on. Anyway, Lucy, this is the most fantastic day in the world. And I tell you what, if I was getting married, my day wouldn't even be as good as this, because you and John are so good.
And you owe me 20 grand.
Yeah, and me as well.
Every father likes the prospective son-in-law to make a fuss of his daughter, and I think the way John carried it out in that really romantic style in them settings was absolutely perfect.
We chose to get married at St Philip and St James's. It's a very, very pretty church. It's our local church. Jill Mulberry, the vicar, she laid on a lovely service.
Just felt right in regards to like the greenery and that around it for photographers, and we was mainly looking for that sort of feel where, you know, you don't just step out and, you know, you're on a pavement and then you've got to go to a local park. Because of the fact of, you know, the grass and the green areas, if people wanted to take photographs and if they wanted to, you know, obviously just stand around and, you know, not have to think, oh, well, let's poodle off to the local park now and watch them get photographied and all the rest of it, when it was just a real nice church.
Neither of us have actually been christened, and we did obviously ask if that would be a problem for getting married in a church, and she didn't seem to have a problem with it. We obviously was going to church before we got married anyway.
The night before I stayed at my mate's, my mate Wayne's, who was one of our ushers, and just didn't really I felt all laid back and sort of relaxed and not really worried at all. We left Wayne's in the morning, and we was driving through, Wayne lives over in Ashford, and we was driving down the 316, and then all of a sudden it hit me. I felt like I wanted to cry and be sick and go to the toilet. I was really nervous, and it wasn't until we pulled into the car park that Lucy left a message with Lynn to tell Wayne. She said to Wayne, do not let John go in the house because her dress is in the bathroom hanging up. And Wayne was very supportive of me. He's going, don't worry, mate, you'll be OK, blah, blah. Wayne came out and he was crying. He said, mate, he said, when you see her, he said, that's it. He said, well, put it like this, it's just made me blink and cry. It wasn't until I put my suit on that all of a sudden it cleared, and I thought, right, that's it, let's go. I felt really good. And then My brother-in-law, George, when he put his suit on, he said, no, can I pull out? I don't want to do this now. I feel really nervous. People are going to be looking at me and taking photographs. I don't want to do it. And I said, you've got to do it. And we was getting changed, and unfortunately, Dad made a bit of a boo-boo with his measurements, and his suit jacket was quite a bit big, and so was his trousers, and he didn't have a belt. So he's going, bruv, look, he said, they're going to be falling down. Please let me pull out. I've had enough. I don't want to do it.
We went to the suit fitting shop to start with. And the lady in the shop didn't seem too keen on me for some reason. I don't know why. It was something to do with inside leg measurements, I believe. But she promptly threw me out of the shop. So, come to the day of the wedding, I've put a suit on. It's about 3 sizes too big for me. So I said, I can't do anything. I can't do anything. There was no belt loops on it to fit a belt. I look like I've been wearing my dad's suit for the morning. So they said, you've got to make a speech. I said to them, I can't stand up in front of everyone and start shouting around this. They said, well, you just walk around in front of everyone in the church the whole day looking like it. So 10 minutes speaking is not going to help, but there you go. I made a couple of little speeches, nothing too major.
Well, obviously I came round here where they're all getting ready, and my ex-wife said to me, when you see your daughter, you'll cry. And I thought, no, I won't, because I'm a big, butch, tough fireman, I won't cry. Anyway, she walked out there and I welled up immediately. She looked fantastic. And it was just such a proud day. You know, I think, like, I was probably more nervous than Lucy was. I was absolutely shaking like a leaf, and it was just surreal. It just didn't seem like it was really happening at the time, I must say. It was just fantastic.
I was very nervous, very apprehensive for how the day was going to go. But it really was a lovely day, especially when, you know, I came over here and I saw Lucy in her wedding dress, and she looked really beautiful, and as the bridesmaids did. And then in the church, you know, it was just a wonderful day all the way round, actually. A day that is probably unforgettable.
Okay, I sort of set the alarm for around 7 and get all excited, all ready to get to the hairdressers for around 8:30. My best friend Jade stayed with me the night before, and she's as mad as anything. She's got, what should we do then? Come on, crack open the champagne. I went, Jade, it's 7:05. And she went, and? I went, all right, let me brush my teeth first. I think it was once I'd had all my hair and makeup and everything done, I did sort of feel a little bit, I don't know, a little bit nervous. Come back here and then, once my dad turned up and my mum, I don't know, I think that sort of eased me slightly. And my dad's sort of quite a joker, he was sort of cracking jokes every 5 minutes, and it sort of lightened the morning, I think. So I actually didn't feel too bad on and off. I had my moments, but yeah, it was good, really, really good. We've got a clock in our oven. Didn't realise John's friend had been round the night before and he'd been leaning up against it. So that clock was actually 20 minutes fast. So of course I'm standing there, I phoned my florist up, I've screamed, where's my flowers, you're 20 minutes late, blah, blah, blah. As a matter of fact, they were actually on time and they were brilliant. Done the same with the car, where's the car, blah, blah, blah. Once I looked on the other clock, realised that was 20 minutes fast, so of course I've been panicking all morning, 20 minutes ahead of myself. Yeah, the car turned up and I know the back streets in Witton, I know exactly where I'm going. Well, I've nearly directed him straight past the church and we had to do a pit stop, try and turn around to the side street. And I think that's when my nerves did really, really kick in. So, and walking down the aisle again, I just tried to focus on exactly what I was doing. My brother called me the ice queen. He said, you walk down there with no emotion. I said, well, I was just trying to focus on I was nervous. I was definitely nervous.
And there was an instance where we obviously knew it was getting to 12:55 when obviously the wedding was at 1 for Lucy to turn up. And I walked into the church and George was sitting on obviously one side, I'm sitting waiting for Lucy. I needed to go to the toilet and I said, I really need to wee. He said, so do I. He said, quick, let's go. So we ran into the back of the church and, well, it was one of them ones where, how can I word it? It was a very nervous toilet. So once we sort of ran back out and sort of conducted ourselves, we was sort of standing there, pleased as punch, thinking, OK, I hope nobody goes in that toilet.
When I started walking down the aisle, as soon as I obviously saw John, I just remember grinning like anything. I just felt like I could have got the giggles, to be honest. I just remember smiling. And I think I got in the church. I was in such a world of my own. I actually sat down on the wrong side and the vicar's going, Lucy, Lucy, Lucy. I've got cloth ears. I'm sitting there like that, waiting for her to carry on. I ended up having to get up in front of everyone, run over to the other side and, oh dear, but that's me, clumsy.
As you enter the church and, you know, she's got her arm in mine and you get all the relatives, everyone that I haven't seen for many years, all sort of turn around looking and you just, I just sort of welled up and felt so proud, puffed my chest out and walked down the aisle. And then when John turned round, I got his body language that he was like overwhelmed as well.
A very warm welcome to you all to St Philip and St James Church on this special day for the marriage of Lucy and John.
He turned round, he had tears in his eyes, I think. He's quite emotional, you know, really. He likes to pretend he's not, but he is. And he turned round and he saw Lucy and I could see his Adam's apple going and he looked so emotional, didn't he, Mum?
He did, yes, yeah.
He really did.
It was just like, oh my God, like, you couldn't believe it was my sister walking through there. I mean, it was just so nice. John, I knew his heart was just, he couldn't believe it. It was so good. It was just an amazing wedding, the vows and everything. When they read them out, I was sitting there and my mum kept nudging me saying, stop being a big softie, you're crying more than I am. The other ushers going to me, you'll be all right, mate. And it was very emotional.
Lucy, I thought, looked absolutely stunning on her wedding day. She really did. When I was standing at the aisle and I turned around and I see her walking down, I had visions, obviously, but you can never, ever, ever imagine how well, you know, your future wife's going to look on that day. You know, she really did outsell herself. You know, the dress was beautiful, the makeup, the hair, everything was, you know, when you actually sit back and you think, blimey, this wedding's costing me a lot of money, it doesn't come into it at all. If you can afford to do it, I mean, you're best to go for the best because they're the bits that you remember.
As they come out of the church and there's the big pink Cadillac sitting there and you had Mr. and Mrs. Pink sitting in the back of the pink Cadillac, it all fitted together really well, I think.
always been a very, very close family. As like John, he more or less worked alongside of his dad, so he was in constant contact with his father. And the blow to John, I think he's still not quite coming to terms with it, but he's managing it much better now than obviously to begin with. The wedding day originally was scheduled for the 4th of August, in which case it was a month to the day that my husband obviously had his heart attack, and we would have actually been in the hotel that weekend, wouldn't we? Mm. But it was put back a month, in which case, you know, I don't know if it was something that, but it was just an uncanny thing because it was exactly a month from the date that John and Lucy got married to the actual original date, which would have been the weekend when my husband had his heart attack, in which case we would have been in the hotel, the reception hotel, on the Sunday. So it was, you know, we don't know these things, do we? So, but yeah, after a beautiful day, it was very, very sad. And I think, considering things all round, I think Lucy and John, after a really lovely, lovely day, have coped tremendously. You know, after being so happy and having something so suddenly happen like it did, I think they've done wonderful, both of them. And obviously with the baby coming along, it doesn't make up for things, but we're just trying to sort of look toward now rather than keep looking back all the time.
Well, John, as you know, you've had a wonderful day. You're well truly married now, mate. I'd just like to say I hope you're as happy as I am, and I hope you will be happy for the rest of your life with Lucy. And God bless you, my son, and God bless you, Lucy, too.
Yeah, thankfully I did have my dad as my best man because back last April my dad turned 60. And he was looking to retire. He was in the same game as me. He was actually an electrician, whereas I'm a plumber, but we was all sort of working together. We had our wedding in July, obviously, and unfortunately in August, my dad had a heart attack, and very, very shocked to the system, he died. Unfortunately, not even seeing our wedding video, and it was quite upsetting because the day he actually died, we was actually we'd actually arranged, my sister and Lucy and I, obviously, to actually drive down to the coast where they were staying with the DVD player to actually show them the video, the mum and dad, which, and have some lunch, that was a bizarre time as well because that felt like it was meant to happen, meant to be, because obviously Dad being rushed into St Richard's Hospital, just made sense to go there, you know. When this happened to my husband, and obviously when he passed away, John and Lucy said to me on that same evening, we're going to go straight in for a baby, Mum. So I said, oh, that'd be lovely, John and Lucy. You know, obviously I was a bit out of it, but... and that's obviously exactly what they done. And, you know, everybody, you know, including myself, are really looking forward to the baby, as just like my husband. He always wanted a grandchild. And... he'll be there, though. He'll be there, I'm almost certain of that.
Yeah, well, I think if you can judge by the tragic event that followed the wedding, like John losing his father, which he was obviously very devastated about, and if they can get through that together, then I don't think there's anything that can stop them, to be honest.
Come on, Michael! Well, before I start reading this speech, I'd just like to say that I spent hours and hours on it, and I'm gutted because Martin beat it. And so did John. I don't know how you found so much in that cut of his plate. Anyway, to start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Well, I hope I won't spoil it too much, but to introduce myself, if you don't know already, I'm Mike, I'm John's dad, and I've considered it a great pleasure to be and an honour to be the best man introduced today. Right, I've also I found out there's a bet on the length of this speech. I've put £10 on for 90 minutes, but don't worry because there will be a break halfway through. Right?
My dad, being my best man, he always had a dry sense of humour. He's very, very laid back. Anybody that knew him would actually say, you know, they say if he was any more laid back, he would fall over. And the speech my dad done was really, really out of this world.
John's good with his hands. Don't I mean, in building things. I mean, with John, for example, if he was to build, you know, like a birdhouse or a tree house, one room wouldn't be good enough for John. He'd want to install a toilet. But the problem is, you'd probably have to wait like 6 weeks. You'd have to flush the pan with a bucket, and there'd be no ball on the toilet. He's also become something of a gourmet chef, which is bloody amazing, considering his idea of a balanced meal was a pint of lager in one hand and a kebab in the other.
Still is.
I was nervous. I was very nervous. I won't lie there. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know that I got my wordings crossed quite a lot, only through the fact of looking back at the DVD, but and also hence the reason for sweating like a pig.
My speech today would be like a mini skirt, short enough to keep your attention, long enough to cover the essentials. Obviously, being as nervous as I am, you can tell because I'm scratching the back of my neck, sweating like a pig. I've had to prepare 3 lines. That's why I had a 10-minute break. Because now I saw them, I feel fucking brilliant. So anyway, here we go.
When you got your friends and your family sitting there, you think yourself that, yeah, you feel more relaxed, but you don't. It's actually worse. And I think because all eyes are on you, you know, it's your day. It's if you know they're all sitting there and they're like that, waiting to hear you say something and comment about, you know, a previous event or comment about them maybe, I don't know. And like you try to keep everyone happy and, you know, make sure that they're enjoying themselves and, you know, most importantly make sure we're enjoying ourselves.
I don't get any better than John. I mean, really, he's everything a father-in-law could ask for. Yeah, so he's just great.
I was absolutely dreading the speech. I could not relax until I'd done my speech. I was so nervous. I
made a good job of it in the end, though?
It turned out okay, but I was just so nervous because I don't like doing public speaking. But it seemed to go quite well.
Yeah, got a few laughs.
Yeah.
Jade being my chief bridesmaid, her responsibilities, I just said to her, there's nothing really I want you to do, Jade. Just make sure during the speeches you hand out the presents as and when we're doing our thank yous. Oh, no problem, I can do that. And she is slightly scatty, bless her. We're halfway through the speeches and I'm going, Jade, presents. She's going, glass of wine, Jade, the presents. Oh, she's jumped up. Oh, the tag's fallen off. And I said, get one of the presents out, Jade, that's still got a tag on it. But it's come off. Yeah, on one present. Oh, I think it lasted 40 minutes during a sit-down meal, trying to dish out the presents.
I've got something to say. If we could one of the stickers has come off, so I don't know whose is whose.
One day you talk, we'll have a look at it.
It's George's.
we've now been married 8 months. Just got married in July, and just recently, 5 months ago, actually found out we're expecting our first baby, which we're obviously really excited about. Actually go for my 21-week scan next week, and I've done one load of sex, one a surprise. So yeah, it happens quite quick, but not complaining.
Well, we said that we wasn't too sure when we'd be looking to start a family, but when I lost my dad, we sort of, the pair of us both said that, well, when we decide to start a family, we'll know when the time's right, we'll work it out, and we'll just start it from there. And then when we lost my dad, we sat down and spoke about it, didn't we? We said, no, I think now we've just had a real happy time, and then we've just had a real sad time. Let's try and find another happy time. And thankfully, 3 months after we got married, Lucy fell pregnant, and yeah, little baby's on the way, 20 weeks, you're getting bigger, aren't you?
Well, I'm very, very excited about being a granddad. Makes me feel even older, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I just hope I can get all the time and money together to spoil it. I really do.
I do think they will live happily ever after. Yeah, I would like to think they will. There's no reason why they won't at all. They get on fantastically. They're a good-looking couple. They'll have good-looking kids, and they got a good-looking uncle for the kids. So there you go.
They seem totally in love with each other. They've got everything going for them. I mean, John he works really hard. He provides for her. She couldn't ask for anything else from him, and well, as far as I know. And I just can't see any reason why it would ever bend. So, yeah, good luck to them, and I hope they stay that way.
I think John and Lucy will be happy ever after, because they just are meant to be, and I think once the baby comes along, that is going to complete them both.
We both click, we both understand each other. We both got the agreement that, you know, rather than sort of keeping things bottled up, which in our eyes, you know, sort of, if I annoy Lucy, she might forget about it, and then I'll annoy her again, she'll forget about it, vice versa. That you tend to get to a stage where in 3 months' time you do something, and then the next thing, everything comes out, well, 3 months ago you done this. We don't do that. We say, hang on a minute, stop that. You've forgotten to put the glass away in the dishwasher. Do it. Okay, sorry, darling. And because of that reason, yeah, we do have our little blow-ups, but we get on famously. And yeah, if I can, I will do anything I can to make sure we live happily ever after, definitely.